we're involved with groups, involved with people, involved with music, and begin to see ourselves as a particular way, our self-perception, and our subconscious just accommodated that self-perception and made that self-perception a reality.
I tell my daughter all the time, why I'm so wise? Because I made so many mistakes. We know that. That's where our wisdom comes from. Come on, we were all kids. We all grew up. We all messed up.
And see, a lot of us are in situations today where we say, well, God, how come it was easier before? You know, it seemed easier before, but now it's hard. God, what are you trying to tell me? God's trying to tell you it's time to move. Get up out of that wilderness. That's not where you're supposed to be living.
How you feeling? That's what we're going to talk about today. Contentment. Peace. Peace of mind. It seems a prevailing reality across our nation and across the world is in anger, negativity, and it's like we're taking it out on each other. And so we're going to discuss that today because as individuals, that's no way to live. We want to be happy. We want to be content. Life is very short in this particular part of our existence. And so while we're here, we should be happy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I believe that the ultimate desire of most human beings, pretty much all human beings that are sane, is a desire to be happy, a desire to be content. And so we have so many ways we go about trying to establish that contentment, whether it's overindulgence in this, overindulgence in that, taking on more education, taking on maybe moving from job to job, moving from relationship to relationship. We do changing our looks, changing our features. We do so many things, but the ultimate bottom line is that we're trying to find contentment, trying to find happiness. And the reason it's so important, maybe because no man is an island, right? We have young people looking up to us. We have husbands and wives, and we're in relationships. We have people that we're attached to and that we're affecting and that we're affected by. So it's very beneficial for us to find out the answer, the culprit to our dilemma. And so that's what we're going to discuss today. I think the first thing we might try to realize or acknowledge is that contentment cannot be found outside of ourselves. I think that's what we find with the drug addict or with the alcoholic, constantly trying to achieve that ultimate buzz, to find that peace, that good feeling. And take, for example, maybe the drug addict that you maybe see on the street every day. It's a good example of most of us in our lives, although that is an extreme. Where that individual at one time was probably finding some joy and happiness in those drugs with their friends, laughing and joking and having a great time. And so the drugs were the thing that would bring them to a particular point of happiness, contentment. But in time, began to realize that it just wasn't enough. And if you look at the drug addict now on the street, they don't look happy. They don't look like they're having a good time. But they're striving and striving to attain that which they will never reach. Because they're looking for satisfaction from the outside. And their satisfaction is actually coming from the inside. You know, there's a religious parable that speaks of a farmer who sowed seed, planted seed. And he was planting seed, and he scattered his seed, and some of his seed scattered on the path. And as the story goes, the fowls of the air came and gobbled those seeds up. He spread them in other places where there was rocky ground, where they could not take root. And when the sun came up, it scorched the new plants and they died. And in other places, the seed fell among thorns. And they were choked as they began to grow, and they perished as well. And then there are other seeds that were planted on good ground. They grew, they had deep roots. They appreciated the sunlight. They grew strong and produced more and more and more, 100-fold. And I believe that the seed is that good thing in each of us that has the potential to be something great. And I'm seeing the type ground is us. maybe from a psychological perspective or a subconscious perspective. That place where that potential seed must take root to grow so an individual can become all that they desire to be. And see, I'm taking this thing back to the family, to the home, the individual homes that we all have come up in. Our homes look different attributes, certain strengths, certain weaknesses. And unfortunately for most of us, there are certain dysfunctions in all of our homes. Some dysfunction worse than the other. And what I'm suggesting then today is that this is the culprit. The homes that we have come up in. The ground that we were raised in. And the seeds that were planted. That seed was our potential, how it grew or how it didn't grow. And so when I see the seed that was scattered among the path and was eaten up by the fowls of the air, that shows me a seed that was planted in a home, in a place where there is no real love. There's nothing even having the ability to even attempt to take root. Because love is unknown. The other seed was scattered and it fell among the rocks. And there was no place for it to take root. That root is relationship, family relationship. Lacking it. There's no root. So they begin to grow. They begin to look like they're supposed to look. But the moment there is pressure, the moment there is heat, the sun that scorched those new plants that had no root, the potential dies. And as well, there was the seed that was scattered among the thorns. And as they began to grow, they were choked out and they died. To me, I see that is an individual that has no moral compass. That hasn't the ability to know right from wrong. And as they begin to grow, there are so many paths, so many obstacles. And that potential never gets realized. But then as the story goes, there's the seed that is planted on good ground, good, healthy ground. And that's the ground from a functional family. Now even in good, healthy ground, there are always things within the ground. There are impurities within that ground. But overall, the majority of that ground is good soil, fertilized soil, which has the right ingredients so that seed can fulfill its ultimate potential. And that's where we all would like to be. That's where we all should be. But very rarely do most of us ever get there. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I believe we can get there. And so many of us, as we've grown up in families that were satisfactory to us, even though they weren't the best environment. I mean, we know that. But we survived. We graduated high school, many of us graduated college, and we're out here in the world, but we're wondering why it's just not coming together. And what I'm suggesting is that there are some of these issues that have plagued us throughout our lives that we just weren't aware of, because it's the soil in our subconscious, soil in our minds, the soil in our hearts that is just not allowing that seed, that potential seed to grow. And we need it to grow. Because that's where our lack of contentment resides. And the biggest problem is that this thing creates cycles, generational cycles in families, because if we haven't dealt with it, if we haven't found the remedy, if we haven't even recognized the culprit, we're going to repeat that environment that we grew up in as the environment that we are creating for our children, that they will grow up in, and their children will create it, their children will create it, if somebody doesn't, that light bulb doesn't go off. And so that's very difficult. It's very difficult because we have to be critical about ourselves, and that's something in our society it's very difficult for us to do because it's hurtful, it's painful. And oftentimes it takes some reflection, some personal reflection, and when you personally reflect deeply, you come up with things at times that you don't want to face, things at times that you may have suppressed because of the pain. It has to be realized. And sometimes we find ourselves just in negative moods, negative personality, negative character traits, perpetrating these ills upon the other people that we're in relationship with, family members, friends, co-workers, fellow parishioners, fellow citizens. Hurtful. So I'm suggesting that we have to come to the conclusion, first of all, do we want to be well? Or are we satisfied with this particular lot in life? I think most of us would, if we were honest, we'd determine that we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be negative. We don't want to be walking in this funk for the rest of our lives, not being able to even come close to attaining our potential. So the first thing we're going to have to do is recognize and admit that it's nobody's, I don't want to say fault, but nobody's going to fix your situation but you, okay? Blaming other folks isn't going to fix the situation. I think we see it in politics a lot, especially in this nation, where we find folks that are disgruntled with life. And then we have ambitious politicians simply desiring to climb the ladder of power in the political realm, and they will use the people by any means necessary. So they will feed the masses with a bunch of disinformation, with a bunch of negativity about somebody else on the other side. And it's like a rallying point. It's an ability to take the pain off themselves and focus on someone else. But when you do that, you're not trying to improve yourself. You're simply blaming somebody else for the ills of your life, and that is going to take you nowhere. I see it sometimes, you hear about prison life. You hear about when a child abuser goes to prison, and then that child abuser is very abused in prison because of his crime. And sometimes even killed. But if you think about the hypocrisy in that, the prisoners that kill him have been taken off of the streets of society, have been removed from the society because they are not worthy to live amongst the society, because they are authors of chaos and crime and pain and even murder and rape in our society. But they find themselves self-justified when they identify an individual put in prison with them who they can determine their crime is worse than theirs. So in a sense, they're doing the same thing we do. We have to find someone that we can take the focus off of ourselves, off of our pain, off of our discontentment, and put it on someone else. Take it out on that individual. But when that individual is killed, we're back again having to face ourselves, the discontentment. So we have to recognize that our lack of contentment, that the ills of our minds, the ills of our lives, these ills and negativities that we create, it's within us. It's on nobody else. Because the reality is, this is what we're all going through, from one form or one stage or another. So I haven't the luxury to blame you for my ill state. You haven't the luxury to blame somebody else for your ill state. You have to fix yours. I have to fix mine. I find it very interesting. And it's a good example of the negativities when the Olympics, the 2023 Olympics. And we're looking at some of these players like that young runner from Texas, Sha'Carri Richardson. She had a little run-in with the doping commission, and she was banned from a particular Olympics because they found weed in her system. And she didn't complain. She just worked hard, and came back to this Olympics and just blew them all away. I think she walked away with 2 golds and a bronze. And so that individual like this should be celebrated. But as you go on social media and look at a lot of the comments that people are really harsh, really coming down on her hard for one reason or another, bringing up her past or just ridiculing her for who she is. And even though she beats some folks, saying you're not as good as they are, just finding a way to ridicule this individual. Why would you? Because you're walking around with ills of your own, and rather than face your own, it's easier to put the focus on somebody else. I think Angel Reese, a college basketball player, has taken a lot of flack. A young person in her early 20s, a millionaire now, has found a way of success that people are really ragging on her hard. Why? Because they're not well within themselves. When you're well within yourself, this is a good sign. This is a good sign. You can look at the gauge and see if you're too hot or too cold, if you're just right. A good sign, a gauge for an individual is, how do you celebrate other people? Do you celebrate people or do you tear them down? I was noticing the other day as I was driving down the highway, and there was an individual a couple lanes over. He made a bad move, inconvenienced the truck. The truck driver got so mad and he was just hitting his horn, banging his horn, all angry and everything. And I got to thinking that the man just made a mistake. Why is this truck driver so angry? And then I got to thinking about how many times I've made mistakes on the road. How many times other folks have made mistakes on the road. I don't believe if you've been driving for any serious length of time that you haven't made a mistake that inconvenienced someone else. That's simply a reality. We've all done this. So if you have done it, do you really have the right to get mad when someone does it to you? Because you know that when you did it, it was an accident. But when somebody else does it, you get so angry with them. And it's no more an accident on their part than it was on your part when you did the same thing. So why do we respond this way when we know it's not fair, when we know it's not real? Because we are not happy, we're not content inside. When you're content inside, you excuse the errors of others. When you're content inside, you celebrate the victory of others. When you are not content inside, you disparage the errors of others. When you are not content inside, you don't celebrate the victories of other folks. Man, when I see businesses that are prospering, especially small businesses, I celebrate the folks, even if it's in an area of business that I have no interest in. I love to see people put their hands to do things and make them prosper. The reality is, if you don't, there's an issue within you. I'm just naming off all these gauges that we can look at when we see foreigners come to this nation and start businesses and prosper. Whether it's Koreans or folks from India or folks from the Middle East, Africa, anywhere. And they come here and they make it. And so many Americans get mad. Well, why do they get mad? You were already here. Because they have a lack of contentment within themselves. Folks that are successful don't criticize because they recognize the path that it took them to be successful was a struggle. And so anytime they see others on that same path or successful, they recognize the path that individual took to get there. It wasn't all that easy. So we do have to begin to judge ourselves and recognize the red flags in our own lives, that we're simply not happy. People are not happy. Look at the health condition of most people. So many people, especially in this nation, are overweight and obese. Even to the point where we've made it wrong to even suggest that someone is overweight or obese in an effort not to have to face the gauge. It reminds me of when I was a kid, I had a 62 Comet when I was in high school. And I didn't really know that much about cars, and I really had no time to be working on cars, even the simplest fixes, So if I'm driving along and I hear the engine clicking, I know that it needs some oil. I didn't have time to stop, so I just keep on driving. That clicking would get louder. I would just turn the radio up so I wouldn't hear the clicking. And so we ignore the warning signs. But if we just address the issue, the warning signs would dissipate. They wouldn't be there. There would be no need. And so when you have an individual that's unhealthy because of a lifestyle, in taking the wrong type foods or not exercising, not taking care of themselves, not getting enough rest, just self-sabotaging, taking drugs, drinking alcohol, all these things are just signs of an individual who's got some sort of problem going on. It's all of us pretty much in one form or another. Because who would self-sabotage? Maslow, he said, and I think we can all pretty much agree, that the most basic human trait is survival. That's the most basic among all of us. So why then would we partake in actions and activities that self-sabotage, that are a detriment to our health, that are a detriment to our lives, that are actually killing us? Because something is wrong with us. We're not content inside. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think I've depressed us enough so far. But I just wanted to drive this home that there are issues that we have, and if we look carefully, we can live with them so long, we can acquiesce to, oh, well, this is just who I am. That guy's just grumpy, or whatever. Have these issues, but no. What I'm suggesting is there are underlying issues of unhappiness because of the environments that we were raised in. And what I'm suggesting is that these are preventing us from attaining the great potential that each of us were born in this world to attain. And so we're going to try to fix that today. So how do we fix it? How do we fix the issue? Because it's this thing has taken years and years. It's gotten us to the point where we're kind of jacked up. How can we be made well? So as I said, the first thing we have to do is acknowledge it. Recognize we're not well. Recognize that we need to be well. Recognizing that the only way we're going to be well is by fixing ourselves. So what I would suggest to him is looking at all these symptoms of our illness. Now ordinarily what I'm going to suggest wouldn't work in a regular physical life, but we're talking about things that are up here or in our subconscious. When I go here, this means the subconscious, but really it's all up here. Is that, if you have a regular sickness, say you have the chicken pox or you have the flu or whatever kind of illness you have, and you have symptoms of that illness, treating the symptoms is not going to cure the illness, okay? It might give you some relief, some temporary relief, but it's not going to cure the illness, okay? And what I'm suggesting is in the same way when we have mental issues going on, things that are troubling us, things that are deeply troubling us, that have caused us to walk the wrong paths in life, smoking that weed is simply treating a symptom of the illness. Okay, drinking that alcohol is simply treating a symptom of the illness. And so we have to ask ourselves, this is a time, what they call the come to Jesus moment. This is a time just to be real with ourselves, If you're okay, why would you have to alter your mind, alter your brain in order to feel good? You should be feeling good already. Okay, so recognize that's number one, okay? So we're going to need to be addressing our symptoms, and that's how we're going to find our place to wellness. When it's something emotional, when it's something mental like this, first we have to identify the symptoms and begin rolling those symptoms back. So with the weed and with the alcohol, it's easy. We need to stop. Stop doing those things. And then you'll be faced with your real issues. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to identify the real issues. It's almost like it's having the evidences and you don't know the cause. And so you're following the evidences all the way back, and eventually you'll get to the cause. That's what we're trying to do. There was this thing in business. Some of you may have heard of Six Sigma. It's a way to determine problems that you're having in a business or in an organization to fix them. And one of the tools is this concept called the 5 whys. And the way the 5 whys work is you look at a situation that's really jacked up. And this is unacceptable. And so this end result here, you ask why. Why is this happening? Okay? So say you're in a business that's delivering packages to a customer and a package is late. So you say, why is the package late? Okay? Because this is where it's at, and it's after 5 o'clock. So why is the package late? Because the truck came in late. That's a why. So if the truck was here on time, the package would have been on time. Okay, why was the truck late? The truck was late because the workers got the package to the dock later than it should have been And so the truck had to wait around and leave later. Well, why did they get the package to the dock later than it should have been? Why? Because the people in the warehouse didn't get the paperwork to pull that package, to take it to the dock so the truck could leave. Well, why didn't they get the paperwork? Keep asking whys. Why? Because the computer system doesn't come on until 8 o'clock in the morning to kick out all these orders. Well, why doesn't the computer system? Because that's the way the instructions work, because the guy doesn't come in to the office until 3 hours before that to turn the power on. And you keep asking whys all the way back till you get to the culprit why. And as you fix that culprit why, all the other issues resolve themselves, okay? And what I'm suggesting today, that's how it is in life. So we have these issues, we look at the symptoms, and we ask why? Roll them all the way back. And oftentimes they come back to our family because that's where we started. That's where we came into this thing. And for some of us, we might find situations that happened after the family. Maybe it was a bad marriage that lasted for 15 to 20 years that got the mind all jacked up. It could be anything, but we need to find that out. And I'm just suggesting to you right now, we need to start by getting rid of that buzz. Getting rid of the mask that conceal the issues. And then begin looking at the issues. And so we can say then maybe we're down on ourselves. We have a negative self-image. Could have been from the marriage. Could have been from the family coming up. Daddy always told me I was ugly. Mama always told me I was stupid. I never make anything of myself. Who knows? Maybe I was molested. Any of these things. And maybe more of these things than just one. And sometimes all of these things and more. So how do we begin to fix those things? Some of the people that were the culprits, they're not even here anymore. They're dead, and we're still going through these issues. We have to find a way to roll these back. We have to begin to convince ourselves of what we truly are and how those are not. We are great. We have the potential to do great things. I always raise my children, whatever it is you're struggling in, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, look at somebody that's doing it. They have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head like you. If they can do what you can, figure out what it is they're doing. So they're becoming successful at it, and you do that as well. That's the way you live. That's the way you live life. And so what I'm suggesting is we need to begin affirming ourselves in every kind of way possible, okay? I remember once I was in the neighborhoods, in an inner city neighborhood, and this guy that knew me, he was kind of halfway homeless, kind of jacked up. He was always dirty. He was always really, really messed up looking for money. And he knew me, and he said, hey Jarvis, give me a word. And I think he was looking for, and I was in a hurry that day. I said, hey man, just pray every day. And I was kind of blown. He said, no. He said, I need a real word. He knew I was just blowing him off, and I felt kind of guilty. And so I said, come here, man, listen. And I sat there for a second, and I thought, it took like a half a minute. I said, look, every day do something good for yourself. Every day do something good for yourself. Today you might look at your toenails, trim your toenails. That's it. Tomorrow you might want to trim your fingernails. That's it. The next day you might want to get some of the knots, out of your hair. Whatever it is you need to do every day, promise yourself, do something good for yourself every day. Eventually, he's going to come to the point where he's going to be struggling to find something good that he can do for himself. And he's going to do himself right out of the negative situations that he's in. Because eventually, the physical things are going to begin to dissipate. And he's going to be working on, what can I learn? What can I understand? Maybe I need to find some way to get a new pair of socks. A new pair of jeans, a new shirt, a new jacket, a new hat. Eventually, somehow, I need to go to the community college. And if he's looking halfway decent, not looking all crazy and everything, somebody might share on the path to go to the community college. After that, he's going through there 2-3 years in the community college. He's going to be getting enlightened on how to go to the next phase. And he's going to do himself good every day right out of his situation. That's a self-affirmation. When you're simply doing good for yourself every day, starting with your toenails, you're affirming yourself every day. Man, when you're looking in the mirror every day, everybody looks in the mirror every day. Man, take advantage of it. Say something to yourself. Man, you're successful. You're smart. You're handsome. You love everybody. Think of anything, whatever area you're struggling in life. It might seem like a lie at first, but it's what you desire to be. Okay? Because we need to understand that we have a choice to be whatever we want to be. Even from a subconscious perspective, we are functioning in that place where we desire to be. So if your life is all jacked up, you're mean, you're negative, and everything is just vile about you, that's where you want to be. So I'm suggesting this is the way to change your feeling about yourself. You can decide consciously where you want to be and begin affirming yourself every day in the mirror. Just pick 5 things. I'm strong. I'm healthy. I'm vibrant. I'm successful. I'm loving. 5 every day, and just affirm those. Maybe when you're putting on lotion, or when you're shaving, or when you're putting on, or whatever you're doing, just affirm those 5 things. They don't have to be over and over, just one time in the mirror every morning. To the point where you're going to be making those affirmations in such habit form that you're not even going to be realizing that you're saying these things, and it's going to be seeping into your subconscious. And before you realize it, one day you're going to be that. I'm telling you, that's affirmation. Recognize that. Another way of affirmation, self-affirmation, taking care of yourself, is to begin eating healthy. Every time you eat something that's not healthy, you're not affirming yourself. You're not affirming that you're well. You're doing just the opposite. You need to exercise. We know that. We need to do some cardio, get that heart pumping. We need that as well. If you're overweight, realize this as well. We need to begin eating correctly. We need to begin exercising. Each time you eat correctly, each meal that you eat that is correct, you're affirming yourself that you are well, that you are healthy. Every day when you exercise, what should be every day, you're affirming that you're well, that you're healthy. You're affirming yourself. Take care of yourself. Now, I waited because those are the easy parts, believe it or not. Now, the hardest part, I think, for us is to forgive ourselves. Because of our condition, we have been negative toward other people. Okay? Whether it's a racial thing, whether it's a sexist thing, whether it's a gender issue, mad at people who are not like us. And this isn't even affirming them, it's recognizing there is something in me that makes me critical of others who are simply making choices for themselves, okay? And not getting them off the hot seat because they're going through the same things themselves. Some of the issues who knows? What a tangled web we weave. I mean, this stuff goes pretty deep. The first thing we need to do is forgive ourselves for what we have done to other people, said to other people, been toward other people, thought about other people. And now the hardest part is that before we can forgive ourselves, we have to be forgiven by them. Oh man, that's going to be a tough one. And so what I'm suggesting is now it's not feasible to go up to everyone that is affected by what we have done and ask forgiveness for. But we definitely have to change our position on topics that have harmed other people, that have demonized other people, simply because of our negative attitude toward what it is they espouse for themselves. You have to. And just acknowledgement is enough. Like we have an issue in this nation today, a racial issue, an issue over slavery, an issue over reparations, and an issue over simply acknowledgement. We have even gone so far, today as to be in some school systems, in some states, to begin teaching that slavery wasn't so bad, to exonerate the individual from having to actually respond to what they know is wrong. Okay? And what I'm suggesting is that this isn't political. I'm just saying the damage that it's doing to each individual is that everybody knows the truth. So as you suppress it, as you deny it, as you celebrate the banning of truth, you're just solidifying your own dysfunction. You're not going to be able to climb out of that because you haven't resolved this inner situation, this inner offense that you have perpetrated against other folks. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that there needs to be reparations. I'm not at all suggesting anything like that. I'm simply saying that for your own personal wellness, you have to acknowledge truth. You can't get on the bandwagon of denying what history, of denying what you know is true. And it's the same with a man. Now, let me give you an example. I'll try to get a good example. Of a man who loves his wife, but one night or one day in a fit of rage, maybe he had been drinking alcohol, whatever the reason was, but he gets so mad and he hits her maybe 2 or 3 times. And then he feels real bad about it. Of course he will. It's the next day he sees her and she's bruised, got bruises, a little black eye and everything, and he feels terrible. But he doesn't say he's sorry. He's sorry, but he just doesn't have it within him to say that he's sorry, okay? And so now every time he sees her, he just feels sorry of what he did, okay? But eventually, if he never resolves that, if he never apologizes, eventually he's going to begin resenting her every time he sees her because it's going to remind him of what he did and the bad feeling that he has. So initially, he was just feeling bad every time he saw her. But in time, he became resentful toward her because of the way he was feeling when she showed up. Eventually, in time, if he's still not dealt with it properly, he's going to be getting angry with her because that resentment is going to turn to anger. He's angry because he resents her. He resents her because he knows he was guilty, but he hasn't made it right with her. What I'm suggesting to you as it goes on far enough, he might even going to hit her again. Because that anger is going to turn to violence. The violence that is a result of the anger that is a result of the resentment that is a result of the sadness that is a result that he never made it right. And so what do you think? Look, consider all that. What do you think all that's doing to the individual? Well, what do you think it's doing to his wife? So now she's got issues about him, because she knows he created all this situation and he's being unfair to her, not apologizing, being mean to her, being angry to her. What is this creating within her for him? And what could it possibly be creating in her toward all men? And what is it creating within him, this inability to deal with this issue that he has? So I'm suggesting is we need to forgive ourselves, but we cannot forgive ourselves until we get forgiveness. And in large-scale situations like most of us live in, most of us were raised in, simple acknowledgement is asking forgiveness enough. That's what I'm suggesting. That is the affirmation for yourself, and that is the doorway being opened. So you got some homework to do. You got some stuff to do, but it's attainable. And you know, there's a religious saying that you reap what you sow. That means you will grow what you plant. Okay? What goes around comes around. Karma. You know, every culture, every society has a form of that particular saying. And why is it? Because it seems to be true. But the problem is, and this is what I want to leave you with, the problem is when we say, you know, what goes around comes around, or you're going to reap what you sow, or karma, usually we're saying it in a negative way to somebody we believe deserves something bad to happen to them because of what they've done. And you know, that might all very well be good, but usually that's self-serving as well, because again, we're putting our focus on them rather than admitting that we are culpable in the situations of our own lives, okay? So what I'm suggesting is take that same religious saying, you reap what you sow, or the what goes around comes around, or karma, you know, take all that, and don't look at it as far as the negative. If you do bad, it's going to come back to you. I mean, it is true. What I'm suggesting is use it for the positive. If what goes around truly comes around, and you want good in your life, begin doing good in other people's lives. If you're actually going to reap what you've sown, begin sowing, planting some good stuff so you'll reap it back. So whatever it is you're lacking in life, begin to sow that in the lives of others. If you're lacking love, sow love in the life of others. Find people in the community that are alone, that are in need, of communication, of relationship, of communion, and begin to sow help and love into their lives. Whatever it is that you're in need of, man, this is number uno. This is number one. I mean, after you've already forgiven yourself, which comes after you've acknowledged the ills that you have perpetrated on others, even in your mindsets, your actions. Man, begin sowing good. And I'll leave you with this little story about myself, of course. I spent 17 years going into juvenile detention, talking to the young people every week, trying to encourage them. I missed 4 weeks in 17 years. And I would go in there. I didn't just go in there to talk to them. I would go in there because I would speak to them. There would be like 40 of them in folding chairs every week. And then afterwards, I would speak to them one-on-one if they wanted to talk personally. And what I'm suggesting is that 17 years, when I'd go in there, I wouldn't just go in there to talk about anything. I would rack my mind and do research and look up stuff and think of stuff and write stuff, what I could tell these young people that would give them hope, that would give them love, that would open their eyes, that would give them peace of mind, that would help change their lives. Every day, every week I would come in there for 17 years attempting to help them by giving them anything that I could to help their lives. Now check this out. I know some of you are going to find this hard to believe, but if you're struggling, just don't find this hard to believe. Now, and whenever I'd, come out of there every week, when I'd finish up, probably about 11:30, 12 in the afternoon or whatever, I'd run into people and they'd be telling me, oh, this is a good thing you're doing, Mark. This is a wonderful thing that you're doing. Everybody would try to give me praise and pat me on the back for what I was doing at juvenile. What I'm going to share with you today is that I got more out of that juvenile detention center than those young people did, because of the concept of sowing and reaping. Now look, if you sow one seed, you're probably going to get one plant grow. But what do farmers do? They sow thousands of seeds and they get a big harvest, okay? So every week for 17 years, I would walk in there and there's just one of me. And I would speak into the lives of 20, 30, or 40 kids. I would speak love into their life, hope, prosperity, peace of mind, every kind of encouragement I could come up with, I would speak into their lives. So now, using this concept of sowing and reaping, as I was sowing in the lives of 20 or 30 or 40 people over that long, when I was halfway through, I had been there doing that about 8 or 9 years. I had calculated approximately how many kids I had spoken with up in that, and it came out to about 9,000 kids. That was at my halfway point through doing that time at juvenile detention. So just take that number, 9,000 kids, and there's just one of me. If I have sowed into 9,000 young people's lives, and you reap what you sow, what do you think this one person is reaping back from those 9,000 lives? A lot. Not only that, if you look at each individual, I'm telling you something right now, this is getting good. If you take one of those individuals whose lives that I sowed into, okay, whose trajectory of life was changed because I spoke into their lives, because we know that every incident, every encounter, everything that you experience in life changes you. We know that if I have given this young person something, this young person will have kids one day, and that he will be able to impart something into them that he would not have had I not spoken to him. His kids will impart into their kids will impart into their kids. So there's an old saying that if you kill one man, you've killed a world. That's because of the exponential reality of the offspring of each individual. Now, I've spoken to 9,000 kids halfway through my time in juvenile detention. Each one of those speaking to the lives of their kids because of the changes from their lives, just from our conversation. What do you think I'm sowing back? Okay. So when I hear that religious parable, or when I hear what goes around comes around, I don't look at it from a negative. I mean, I'm thinking if what goes around really comes around, if I'm really going to reap what I'm sowing, I'm going to be intentional about going out and doing as much good as I can for everybody that I can. But no, instead, go on social media, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, and see how many folks are actually negative and ridiculing folks and being harsh on folks. What do you think they're reaping back? What do you think you're reaping back when you do that? Stop it. Be the messenger of good. You'll reap back, I'm telling you, man. You begin affirming yourself in that mirror every day, doing something good for yourself every day, speaking positiveness and life into everybody you can that you meet, good stuff, not being negative, not being critical anymore. Man, you're gonna affirm yourself right out of your negativity, and you're gonna be on your way to attaining that potential you were created to attain. Yeah, there's one. I don't know if we should go any further than this, but there's a little point that we want to make when we talk about potential. What was your potential? You want to say as a baby you had the potential to do great things, anything, maybe, or you can say your potential was that when you were getting this insight, this day, at this moment, and you changed your mind, you had a change of heart. This was when your potential was going to kick in to do those great things. So this might simply have been your destiny, this moment right here. Pick it around. Anyway, think about it. I do want to thank you for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.